but you can do a couple of simple things that will start to get you out of it. What we would call it is relief, but not a cure. So just a momentary relief to change the situation.
Hi, I'm Liz Larson.
And I'm Bill McKenna. We're the hosts of the New Life Perspectives radio show.
We're also the creators of the Cognomovement system, where we help you rewire your nervous system so you can rewire your reality.
Join us each week for great conversations, amazing guests, and cutting-edge information on health, consciousness, and the keys to transformation.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. We're back today with Bill McKenna and myself. Hey Bill.
Hey.
And this week we're talking about this statement that so many of us have said, and so many of us hear from our friends and family, people we care about, is, why does this keep happening to me? Like, why does it seem like in one human's life that they have a pattern of the same thing happening again and again? Losing a business, for example, the same dang relationship again and again and again. Or I know someone who every time they have a car, like the car ends up with 1,000 dents, but it's never their fault. It's like their car is a magnet for these mini fender benders that make the car look terrible, but don't put it out of commission. Like, that's a funny one, right? What are some of the others that you can think of, Bill? Like the why does this keep happening to me scenarios?
Well, the why does this keep happening to me is so often so sad, and you see your friends, your loved ones going through it, and you're like, no, don't stop, don't go down that. And then because you can see it so clearly in your friends, but that is, I think it perfectly defines the feeling of when you're stepping into that situation.
And name some of them. Name some.
Okay. Yeah. Well, first of all, getting scammed. Getting like, oh my God, I got scammed. The world is filled with scammers. Losing things. I lost my wallet. Why does this always happen to me? I always lose my credit cards. You're getting in accidents, over and over, like, I got my coat totaled my car. Another one is betrayal.
Yeah.
Like, all women cheat, all men cheat, or lie. The collapse of businesses, the collapse of like, I worked real hard and then it collapsed.
Or getting fired.
Getting fired all the
time, right?
Getting fired. I've heard so many stories of that one. Like, I can't believe that just happened to me again. Let's see. Other interesting ones is
having things stolen.
Having things stolen is a big one. Being excluded.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's a party and I didn't get invited. Oh, getting in fights. I call it lady fights, but it's that the conflict, but obviously men have it too, with other men, getting in kind of relationship fights. But when there's a cycle of, oh, it's going really well, and then wah, 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 wah.
Yeah, and for some people, like, they might have wealth in their life, like their life is really going well financially, but they never can find a relationship. They're always alone.
Yeah.
You have somebody who has great relationship, but their finances are always in the toilet. They get a good job, but they still overdraw their bank account, right? They have more money, but they still keep getting, having their bank account overdrawn, or they have a good job, but they have a controlling boss again and again. It's like what do we call it? A pattern in their life.
Yeah, pattern. Yeah, like the boom bust.
Yeah.
Oh, how many times have you heard? I love them so much. Oh my gosh, I love it. Wah, 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 wah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to give the answer straight up front. The answer to this is you have a pattern, an emotional pattern, and it's something that your nervous system does that literally projects that out into the world, and just almost like it's a magnet for that thing again and again. Because otherwise, for people, it just doesn't make sense why the same thing happens over and over and over. But it's based in something very specific, isn't it, Bill? Something that's identifiable.
And that is the feeling. The quality of your life is relative to the quality of the feeling that you have. And that feeling has this interesting way that it happens that no one knows about. And it's actually your nervous system. Your nervous system will produce a feeling. And as soon as we get that feeling, we think thoughts equal to the feeling and will act according to the feeling. But it's so interestingly, this is such an amazing system that the human body is, that it will collapse reality to fit the feeling. And the best way I can describe this is, well, I've got to tell you a little story about someone in my family. There was a wedding just this morning. A wedding is happening, and the family, and it's like last opportunity before you die to go to this family gathering. It's going to be a wedding, and one person in the family's talking to another, and it's like, hey, you going? No, I don't have a way there. Oh, really? Well, you could take an Uber, be $100. Well, I don't want $100, and I can't get that kind of money, for that. And oh well, you could have Uncle Joey pick you up. It's way out of the way, way out of the way. It's like whatever was thrown up as a like, oh, you've got a problem, and there's an objection to it. What happens is literally, and this is a situation we all go through. I'm a victim of it. You're a victim of it. We're all victims of it. Everybody, until you learn how to take control. But that's kind of that's the jujube here, is we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
This is a real phenomenon we all do.
But let me tell you how powerful this thing is. I'll tell the story on myself, which tend to do. But this thing is no little matter. This is so dramatically powerful that it has the ability to absolutely change the reality that you can see, at least. So you said losing things. I was that human, like from birth. Things vanished from me. And I was so upsetting. I always thought, well, I was just some kind of a flake, even as a little tiny kid. Something important, don't hand it to me because it will vanish, right? I would lose my purse. When I got old enough, lose my keys. Whatever it is, if my head wasn't attached, I would lose it as well. Would have, right? Okay. So we're talking about a feeling that you have of losing things. And if you've done that a few times, there's always this anxiety and anticipation of losing things. And I can remember the feeling right now. It was like this hollow spot in my solar plexus, area, this gaping hole of hollowness. and a little bit of anxiety in my throat and my head, knowing that it was going to happen. So I was just about 12 or 13, and my mom was super overprotective. We live in a small town, but of course, on anywhere I would go, someone was probably going to want to snatch me, kidnap me, right? So I finally talked her into allowing us to ride our bikes to school, me and this friend of mine. And we had, I had a new 10-speed. It was amazing. I remember it was called the Mikado 10-speed. It was awesome. And my friend had her bike, and I had a chain, the old bike chains with a lock and key, right? So this key, for the first time in my life, I'm allowed to be a big girl, ride my bike to school, have a lock and key, be responsible for that key, and get ourselves home. And I was responsible for my friend's bike too, because I had the key. So that key, you guys know what's coming. That key, I put it in my locker, just right, and I can picture it today where it was, like on top of a little box, just to the right of the locker. And I had the top locker, and I put it there. But this feeling was so overwhelming that 100% knowing that somehow that key was going to vanish. So between every period we had, it was a middle school, and we had a class, and then we would go back to our locker and exchange, books and stuff. And I would check to make sure that key was right there, right there, right there. And it was there until the end of school, and then it was gone.
Oh,
Gone.
no. Oh, no.
Gone. So now, of course, my worst fear has come true, which, in some way my body knew. And this is a point of how powerful this thing is. I did not move that key. I did nothing with it. And, looked for it, checked on it. So at the end of the day, I had to go get the janitor, and he looked, opened the locker below, and we looked through, and I emptied my locker and looked through, and it was gone. Even at the end of the year, when both lockers were completely empty, I looked in both lockers for that key, and it was vanished. It evaporated into thin air. The guy had to cut the chain off, and I was so embarrassed, so humiliated. But I don't think there was anything else possible for that key to do but vanish, because we literally create our experience by what we can see, what we can taste, what we can touch, what we can feel. And the predominant feeling coming off my body was, that same old feeling, that hole in the gut, and it was going to vanish. This only stopped for me when finally, I think it was Cynthia Sue Larson's book, maybe in the beginning, like years and years ago. And someone also at the same time, my aunt sort of explained it to me, that it probably timelines were shifting, and that was what was happening to the things. And if I could just stop focusing on that timeline, that would stop happening. And you know what? It did. I was able to shift my system to where I'm very confident about things. I don't lose things almost ever anymore. And if I do, I recall that it's likely me. And so I'll say to no one in particular, hey, would you help me find that thing? And all of a sudden the image flashes into my mind. So one of two things is possible. Somebody's telling me where it is. But what's more likely is actually my system relaxes, and I stop having that sensation. My body goes back to neutral. It's my body that goes back to neutral. And all of a sudden that thing pops right back into my reality, or I can see it. I remember exactly where it went, right? So it's extraordinarily powerful. These core, we call them a core feeling, these core feelings that we have. And once we've experienced it, especially as a kid, and it's painful the first time, our bodies remember it and start looking for it and watching for it to prevent it from ever happening again. The only problem is in that watching for it and looking for it and trying to prevent it, we literally create it. So frustrating.
It really is. But the thing is that in everyday experience, that we are all doing this moment by moment by moment. You know, there's obviously kind of the ones that capture your attention have an emotion attached to it. When, for example, you know, you see somebody who's upset, and they are emphatic that the reality is exactly what they think it is. Oh, this person is done doing me wrong, you know, and even when you're there, you're saying, you know, actually, I saw this, and this is what I saw over here, and what'll happen is that will be discounted. Like, nah, probably not. You know what? Their intention was actually something else. I'm sure of it. I'm absolutely sure of it. So with that, I'm going to keep my feeling. I want to, what happens here is a defense of my feeling. I don't want to change it. I actually feel in my body that feeling, whatever it is. But there's a flip side to this. And the flip side of it is what I would call vacation mode. Vacation mode, you know, you get off the plane. Oh my God, for me, you know, the tropical smell. There's a smell of the tropics and jet fuel. I know this sounds weird, but for me, when I get off the plane, I can smell the jet fuel and the tropics at the same time. I'm like, oh man, that's fun, you know, because, you know, the mixture of it is like, oh, there's going to be boats and planes and fun and tropical things and warm water and all the fun to be had. But when you're there, you see things, all of a sudden this feeling, right? There's a feeling somewhere in your body. And with that, oh, things are great. You're happy to see the cab driver, you know, and you're having fun and joking with the cab driver. You're joking with the people when you check into the hotel, you know, and, you know, somebody's trying to overcharge you for a rental boat. And you're like, God darn it, you know, come on now, you know, but it's a good feeling. And you look for validation of that good feeling, you know, you're validating it, you know, you can see the good in that person who's trying to overcharge you for the rental boat. Is like, hey man, he's got a family, he wants to, you know, you're like, yeah, you know, you start to see a broader perspective.
Yeah, well, that's actually called an anchor. And when we come back from our break, let's talk about this. How does a feeling first control your brain and what you think, and then everybody else around you? So let's hear from our good sponsors, and we'll be right back. So today we're talking about this whole thing of why does it always happen? Why does this thing always happen to me? Right? You know, the pattern in your life that kind of creates a lot of pain or aggravation or frustration or embarrassment, you know, all of those heavy things. And where we ended in the last segment is, how does your feeling control what you think, and how does it control your life? And Bill was just talking about the smell of jet fuel and the tropics. So for him, that's something he recognizes as, ooh, we're about to have fun. This is a great time. His body has experienced those two sensations mean we relax, there's a bit of checking out of regular life, and everything's cool. In neurolinguistic programming, it's called an anchor. And I think a lot of people actually understand this, this idea. And what it is that our nervous system recognize a certain set of circumstances through which our body takes in that information. In Bill's case, it's jet fuel and the smell of the tropics. It's very olfactory centered or smell centered, right? And it triggers a series of feelings in the body, hormones, chemicals, and electricity that say, hey, here's when we relax. It's safe to do so now. Suspend all other ideas. And now we're in vacation mode, right? For other people, vacation mode can mean everything goes wrong, everything goes offline. I was one of those people having to do with losing things. I lost my passport. It turns out it was stolen because it was recovered 3 months later, but I lost my passport hours before leaving a flight to Milan from New York. I had to get a new passport in a matter of hours. I ended up missing the plane.
How's that even possible?
I don't know how it was possible. We think it was stolen out of a suitcase, but I don't know. This is the point. At that point in my life, I still had that expectation, that feeling in my body that I'm going to be the dumbass who loses something, so important, right? It would be my phone, it would be my wallet, it would be my passport, right? But it had happened to me so many times before that it meant there's something important happening, that if I lose a key element of it, everything goes off the rails, right? So, of course, that's exactly what happens. So it's the feeling in the body. And the feeling in the body actually informs the brain about what to think, what to see, how to manage the situation. Most people think it's the other way around, that our thoughts control our feelings, and it is not, and it cannot be. Where things are very important, the nervous system looks at things in black or white, life or death, threat or not, right? Where they're important, the nervous system has to be able to react. If a bus is coming, you need to move out of it, the front of it, very quickly. You don't have time to think, I wonder how long I have to get out from the front of that bus. Your nervous system has to put the chemicals, the electricity, and the hormones into action to create movement before your frontal lobe actually catches up. So this is a natural biological part of who we are, that our emotion, our sensation, especially around something that could create pain for us, is governed by this sensation state, this feeling state in the body. So when something that we recognize is really great, our senses see it, smell it, taste it, touch it, like Bill and his jet fuel, right? And tropics, the system goes, hey, we recognize this. No threat. There's no threat. The frontal lobes go into relaxation mode. In fact, they're really turned on in that moment. They can see possibility. They can see new ideas. They can see fun. The body can then experience the adventure through a relaxed state. But if you're like me, who knows for dang sure you're going to lose something vital, and it's really going to put a kink in the next few hours at least, the body will tighten down, tense up, turn on fight or flight, and then everything you see, taste, touch, feel is in that state through that lens. So that is what you experience. And so I think what most people don't understand is that this is what creates our reality. You know how you were saying, Bill, that a person might be given a way out of this problem that they keep having, sage advice, which is don't do that again. Just do it this way. And they reject and reject and reject and reject. Well, it's biological. The body's saying, nope, I went through this before and I am 100% certain this is the way it's going to go down. The logical mind can only be a slave to that feeling and reject and reject and reject. And then the reality shapes itself around that. Two things. One, we literally create our reality with this strong emotion or sensation. And secondly, it's the only reality that we can see, that we can perceive. Our perception is shaped around that very specific sensation. So if you're hearing this today and you're one of those people that has a thing that keeps happening again and again in your life, notice how it feels right now. Notice the feeling around that sensation. And in the third segment, we're going to actually give you some relief from that. We'll give you an exercise to help you have relief of it. But I want you to pay attention. How often has that sensation been in your body when your thing happened, when your pattern took place? So tell everybody a little bit more about this, Bill, about feelings and reality and how entrenched they get.
You know, uh, this is, everybody's heard the term, your subconscious controls 95% of what happens in your life. And that was a very curious point for me. I never really understood how the heck does this happen? What's the mechanism by which my subconscious controls my reality and creates it? And what Liz had come up with was absolutely genius. And that is, our subconscious is our nervous system. It is our feeling. It is the feeling. And that feeling is what drives the entire life. It drives the quality of my life. It will be what I can perceive. Literally, I cannot perceive outside a certain box. It's been said, you can't think greater than you feel. This is so very, very significant that when this is gone, when this feeling is gone, and the other negative feelings, your resentments, your blame, your shame, your guilt, your humiliation, your anger, your fear, your resentments, all of it. And when we let go of all of these things, a new feeling emerges. Imagine being free of all those things. A different reality emerges. And that reality, there's an example of your life right now somewhere around you. It's that person that everybody, these are very rare individuals, but many people know one. And that is a person that things just seem to go their way. There seem to be authentically, genuinely happy and joyful. And no matter what happens, they certainly go through periods, they have suffering. But for the predominant life is a life of excitement, joy, fun, pleasure. And you always want to be around them. You just feel better when you're in their presence. Somehow, some way, you get around them and you just feel good. They're a person that has what Liz says is a different core feeling. It's called a positive core feeling or positive attraction feeling. Liz had discovered something that once you understand this, the world will open up to you. Can you tell them about your discovery of the core positive and core negative sensation?
Yeah, where it came out of, Bill, is a form of absolute necessity. Both of my parents had just passed 35 days apart. We had a practitioner training that we were reworking that was just massive. It was like 65 hours worth of video that needed to be shot, directed, and produced. And it was due in 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. We had this whole several months of illness and reasons that my parents died. And this thing hadn't even been shot or none of it had happened. And I could not get my mind back to work. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't. So I pulled out my Cogno ball, which is what we do with Cognomovement. That's the business that Bill and I have in the modality we created. And I went to work on this feeling I had of I just cannot do this. I can't get back to it. And it occurred to me I had this feeling in my body. And I realized how familiar it was. Now, this is the key, that familiarity, right? So familiar. Well, what I did was I went back in a little timeline. It's an NLP process called timeline work and timeline treasure. And I went back over my life, but I looked for not the idea, but the feeling to see how many places in my life this exact feeling had limited me, had created what I now call an electric fence. That when I got near it, I felt this tug back, just a pushed back. And how many times it drove me forward and how many times it held me back. And when it drove me forward, it's something that didn't feel great, right? It didn't work out well. Well, in that very short time, it was like a flash of insight, which happens so often in Cognomovement. I realized that this was my core feeling. This was my core limiting feeling. So I worked it through with Cognomovement. I pushed the buttons and the dials of the nervous system to have it stop putting its attention on that feeling. And when it did, everything shifted. Now, we all have a base core feeling, but many of us have a few, a subset as well that we sort of start to clear out. But that was the beginning. And then much later on, there was a positive core feeling. We realized there's a time in your life, and that's that person you were talking about, Bill, who seems to always have it together, who can figure it out on certain subjects. Every person has their Achilles heel, but those people tend to have confidence and their brain works really, really well on figuring that subject out. And their mind and body are actually reaching for and expecting that positive experience. So when they're encountered with a thing that someone else's core feeling is like panic mode, they're in a positive state and they're like, oh no, I got this. And everything lines right up for them to have that experience yet again. So core feeling is the thing that stops you, puts that electric fence up, or on the opposite side, it frees you to do all the things. So we're up against our next break. When we come back, we'll talk about how to actually alleviate this feeling. We'll give you a little sample and then share with you how you could do this every day in every moment if you chose. So we'll be right back. So we're back and we're talking about why does this always happen to me? And we were talking about how each of us have a predominant or core feeling that creates these patterns in our life and will guarantee that we see them. So let's give everybody a little bit of relief, Bill. Let's talk about what are the knobs and the dials that a person can adjust to change this for themselves in a moment, but also long-term?
Well, there are literally hundreds of techniques that make up Cognomovement. Cognomovement, the modality, utilizes the peripheral vision. Actually, Liz calls it letting the brain see. But the thing that's most closely identifiable with is your non-focused or your peripheral vision. It actually is a different part of your brain than most people are really used to using. Not only does it use Cognomovement, utilize that, but it utilizes your focused vision, your eye movements, your ears, your teeth, the sensation in your body, your actual speech as well, auditory. All these different parts of what we call your nervous system are utilized to get a change, to allow your system, the entire nervous system, to be able to let go of the old pattern. Your eyes, your brain, and your spinal cord are literally one neurological system. And that's what we're talking about here. And these nerves are attached to everything, your liver, your kidney, your fingers, they're attached to everything. So the utilization of the entire system to create change is what we're doing. Now, one of the things about this is that Cognomovement is interesting in that it's not suggestive. It's like we are the opposite. It is like, it always happens to me and it's a horrible feeling. and I can't go on. And you let that feeling be in it. And as you're there on the edge, you notice where that feeling is in your body. And for most of us, the easiest way to try to accentuate this feeling and really allow it is to look down with your eyeballs. You'll really connect with this always happens to me, feeling as you look downwards. And this is important. This is important as you go into to process it. The more you feel that it always happens to me, and you notice where it is in your body, the quicker you're going to get results, and the more thorough as well. But for most of us, we really, as we're listening to this, you don't have time at any given moment to do a full-blown Cognomovement session. There's a lot of moves, there's a lot to it, but you can do a couple of simple things that will start to get you out of it. What we would call it is relief, but not a cure. So just a momentary relief to change the situation is if you were to simply, just like you connected with it by looking down, disconnect from it by looking up. We're not talking about your throwing your head back. I'm talking about your eyeballs. Ascending your eyeballs upward towards the ceiling by keeping your head straight and level. Now, when you do this, you need to park your eyes there. Just park your eyes there and look upwards. And keep your eyes there. There is a different brainwave state. It takes maybe somewhere around 20, 30 seconds. And your brainwave state will go from, they call it beta brainwave states, where it's like, agitated, high beta, where they're very active, to it starts dropping down to what they call alpha brainwave state, which is like a light meditation. You may be familiar with this when you're driving. You know how you kind of like you're driving and you're just kind of like, how'd I get there? You're zoned out, hours pass or we drop into it when we watch TV really quickly. But this will give you some relief with this. Now, another simple technique is where you look, meaning Liz can walk you through the quadrants, which is going to allow you to change where your brain is functioning. Everywhere you look is a different part of your brain. And in Cognomovement, we know this and we utilize it to permanently rewire. But Liz is going to walk you through a little technique as well, which is going to begin you to start taking control of your brain and your nervous system. And again, this is a good relief, and if you want a real cure, you go further and do the full exercise. But go ahead.
Yeah, and I like the one that Bill shared. I mean, that one is so easy to use, just focusing in on that sensation in the body, acknowledging it. That's the first step. Oh, there's that old feeling again. Not allowing it to be the thing that controls your mind, because once you recognize it, right? Once you got your eyes on it, literally, with the eyes and that just looking down like you're looking through your own shirt position, you're like, oh, hello, old feeling. Nope, you're not controlling me today. And breathing in and letting those eyes move straight up, you shift right into an ideas and inspiration. And that deep breath signals the nervous system to calm. So that's a great one. So this is a little extra what Bill's talking about. We're going to add 2 more dimensions. So what you would do in this case is you would let your eyes go down. Notice that feeling. This is always happening to me. Why is this happening to me? Let it be the truth. Don't push it away. Don't pretend like it's not. Let it be there. And then let your eyes move hard right. Just hard right, head straight and level, and let your eyes move to the right. And you kind of let them pitch down to the floor and pitch up to the ceiling while you're letting yourself feel it. Dang it, this always happens to me. Breathe. The deep breath always signals the nervous system to calm. We can't be in fight or flight when we're deep breathing. So, just a few seconds on that right side, really let those eyes stretch, and you let yourself be in the feeling, dang, it always happens to me. Really, really good. Now you're just going to shift your eyes hard left. What we're doing here is shifting hemispheres of the brain. We're letting the brain take a look. We're just repeating. Let the eyes drop down, like to the floor and up the wall on that left side, just deep breathing. And on the left, we let the right side take a look and let it be the truth. It's just this dang thing always happens to me. And by now, the feeling might be changing. Just notice what's the same and what's different. And then the last thing is let your chin drop, but let your eyes gaze at the ceiling all the way left, all the way right, slow and deep breathe. Dang it, this thing always happens to me. And then you might start to notice that your mind starts to come up with other ideas about this. Well, maybe not always, maybe only sometimes, right? Left and right. And then just bring yourself back to center. And you can repeat this pattern again and again. And in a couple of minutes, all of a sudden you'll notice that not only does your body feel different, but your brain has come up with different ideas. And it has also seen this one particular pattern that you have from 4 different perspectives, and then many, many more perspectives based on moving the eyes from low to high in the different positions. These are the opinions that your brain holds, the memories that your brain holds, the ideas that your body holds about this one idea. And it allows for a new pattern to start to be formed. So that's the 30-second to 2-minute view. But there's a much deeper way to do this. And that is what our Cognomovement Essentials program does, is it teaches you, a box of these tools that you can use to change this pattern permanently, so that this one at least is not an issue again. What happens beyond that is your life begins to change dramatically for most people in one session, because now what you can perceive about yourself and your life is completely different. How you feel about who you are as a human changes dramatically, because all of that is driven by this subconscious or nervous system and its opinion about what's a threat and what's not. It's really that simple. So the Cognomovement Essentials program introduces you to the ideas, the initial ideas, but also how you can have control over those knobs and dials that change that system completely. So if you use this, let us know how that works for you, and tell us what changes, because shockingly, it will be dramatic. So Bill, we're right at the end of this episode. What else would you like to tell people? We just have 2 minutes left about why does this always happen to me and about changing it.
In order for you to have this happen, and repeatedly, your body has to hold a tension, a physical tension somewhere in your body. And you'll know that when this tension and this sensation leaves your body, so too does the pattern. You really will stop experiencing it. And the thing is that what separates a Cognomovement practitioner from the average population here on the planet Earth is that with every time they have one of these uh-ohs or a negative feeling, they see it as an opportunity that they'll never experience it again, because they actually allow that negative feeling, and I am not going to have this rule in my life anymore. And so they do the Cognomovement session so that it evacuates from their bodies, and they live extraordinary lives. It's everything. It's not like there's one aspect of life that is touched, like I'm doing this with relationships, but it also impacts my diet, my health, my finances, my creativity. Everything is affected. This is like an octopus. The tentacles go out to every aspect of life. So look at it, or you can look at it like this is an amazing opportunity instead of, why is this always happening to me? It is, you know what? I can be done with this and so many other things I don't know about.
All right, you guys, that's all we have for today. If you want to see more, come to our Cognomovement YouTube channel for all kinds of interesting videos and more quick tips. All right, until next week, everybody be safe and be well. And thanks again, Bill McKenna.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here with us on the New Life Perspective radio show. For more information or to find out more about the work that Bill and I do, please visit us at cognomovement.com or email us at info@cognomovement.com. See you again soon.